It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, John Riley. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 store locations to serve you in San Diego. You've got projects, they've got materials, you need ideas, you want direction, you want help. They are your consultant and your best friend, DIXIELINE Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. Man, have we got a lot to talk about. We're going to try to keep this under 2 hours because some of our podcasts have gone just a little bit long recently, but there's an awful lot to talk about coming off a great sports weekend.
I mean, yeah, we were just saying, Olympics and football starting, baseball is hot and heavy, and you're rolling in here with a Toronto Maple Leafs shirt. You like that?
It's 104 degrees in my driveway, and Dummy wore a dark shirt with long sleeves, but I was thinking cool. And on the way over, I listened to the NHL channel on Sirius XM, so I got my hockey fix. So I'm cool in more ways than one. John, a couple of business items. Let's remind everybody, X marks the spot. You're all on social media. I want you to join my Twitter all-star team. My handle is at Hacksaw1090. Hit follow so you'll get all the things that I put up on my X account. That's at Hacksaw1090. If you like sports, you got to read what I write every morning. It's on my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. You might like your newspaper. I guarantee you, if you like sports, you're going to like all the information I present to you every morning on the website. When you go to the website, there's a big orange box right on the front page. Fill in your name and your address there. You'll get on our mailing list. We do send out a lot of different information to everybody as part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. We want you to share. We want you to subscribe. Tell everybody about what we're doing on Mondays at 1 p.m., what we do on Thursdays at 1 p.m. And when you subscribe, then you get all the notifications because John and I put a lot of stuff up on our YouTube channel. And when we are done giving you all the big stories of the day and we're discussing them back and forth, you're going to take over the podcast. I don't know anybody else that's doing it this way. We call it Fans Forum. He invented it. He's going to tell you why you should be part of it.
Yeah, so if you got a question or comment in the world of sports for Lee, just type it in the live chat on Facebook or YouTube or X. I'm going to just start calling it X all the time instead of Twitter. So you just type in your comment or question for Hacksaw there, and we'll get you involved in Fans Forum.
Yeah, so there's an awful lot to talk about. John, let's get started. Let's talk Major League Baseball. Pennant races, baby. Boy, you look at the standings, say, there's a traffic jam and fight for first place in a lot of divisions. There's a hell of a traffic jam. Everybody trying to claw their way into the wild card spots. And we got about 7 weeks of baseball left.
And the games have been amazing lately. So let's break it down, Lee.
Let's talk about the Padres, then the Dodgers, and then the Angels. Padres are home after this road trip. Boy, the mood swings. The mood swings back and forth, inning to inning. Games you thought they had won that they screwed up. Games you thought they were about to lose, they rallied back. Padre baseball has been quite an experience. This is obviously a very different team. At the end of the day, this was a critical stretch of 15 games against the have-nots in baseball. The Rockies, the Pirates, the Marlins, etc. And they're hanging tough. They're doing pretty well. Yeah, they got a couple of losses during this 15-game stretch. But, boy, this comeback crew has been impressive. 30 come-from-behind wins this season, this roster, compared to last year when they couldn't come from behind or they couldn't win in extra innings. 30 come-from-behind wins. The kid, Jackson Merrill. I don't want to hear any debate about Rookie of the Year. This guy's been doing it since the first weekend of the season. He's doing it with the bat, hitting around 300, doing it with the pressure on him, all these 9th inning, 10th inning home runs, doing it with a glove, stealing bases. Jackson Merrill has to be Rookie of the Year, despite what Paul Skeens has done in a limited number of starts for the woebegone Pittsburgh Pirates. I just am so impressed. Tough road trip for Dylan Cease. he gets rained out of his first start. It was in Pittsburgh, and I sat there for 2 hours and 46 minutes, and he had thrown an inning, and he couldn't come back after sitting that long. And that kind of made it a bullpen day, and that kind of screwed up the bullpen for the rest of that road trip. Padres went to the bullpen 15 times in the series in Pittsburgh because Cease only got through one inning and had to come out. So Cease had a tough outing. This last outing in Miami, his mechanics looked way off. He got banged around early, too much of a hole for them to come back in. I'm concerned, even with all the trades they've made, about overuse of the bullpen because, man, their calls to the bullpen are enormous, and they're asking their guys to come out of the pen on an almost everyday basis now, and I don't like that with 7 weeks to go during the course of the season. We're sitting there and waiting for Joe Musgrove. Musgrove has finally confirmed after multiple bullpen sessions and a rehab start that he's made some changes in his mechanics, trying to use his lower body and his legs on his delivery to the plate to take some stress off the elbow and stress off the shoulder. We'll see how Joe does against the Pittsburgh Pirate team on this Monday night game. I know there's a lot of barking about what could have been a home run ball that turned into a ground rule double in the game in Miami, but the rules are the rules right there. So, the Padres, this is impressive, John. I'm sitting here. The Padres are 36-24 on the road. They've won 16 of their last 19. Since the All-Star break, dudes are 29-13 on the season, and of course, 30 come from behind wins. So I have given you my theory as to where the Padres are. They just have to keep beating people, and that starts with the lowly Pirates who are dragging a 7-game losing streak in here tonight. They keep beating people to stay within eyesight of the first-place Dodgers. Your reaction to everything in Friarville?
This has been a fun ride. These games, Jackson Merrill, these home runs late in the game are amazing. I want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, let's break down that Ha-seong Kim home run. Okay, first of all, it hit the fence, the top of the railing, that padded area,
and came back, hit the guy's glove, and then went back over. So apparently that's a ground rule double. Yes,
but to me that should have been a home run. Because remember the time that Jose Canseco got hit on the top of the head and it went over the fence? That was a home run.
Unless he was leaping for it. I can't recall whether he was doing one of these and was actually above the fence when it conked him.
Well, he was going back like this.
Okay.
And when Canseco was. And by the way, someone broke this down. I think it was Leisure Fryer on X, that the padding on the very top of the wall was tilted down a little bit. And that if it had been square at the very top of it, that it probably would have hit it and gone over. But because it was tilted, it kind of created a rebound. So, but you got to love the way they keep fighting back, and when Cease had the bad day, it didn't matter. The hitters came by, they were grinding, just all the cliches that you hear. They're doing it. I think Mike Schultz has made a huge difference with the culture.
I'll tell you the other thing that's changed. The support from the bench bunch. This is a much different group of guys coming off the bench. In recent months, the value of what Donovan Solano has brought.
Oh, huge.
What Peralta has become. What Higashioka, the catcher, who was a throw-in the Yankee deal, has done in terms of long balls and hitting them out. Suddenly, they got a lot of other guys contributing in addition to what the veteran stars are out there. So, collectively, it's a better team because there's better talent on the team, including the bench bunch. So that's got something to do with the equation.
But I want to wait before you go next. I just want to comment once on the Musgrove thing, because he's starting tonight, right?
Right.
Okay. And it's interesting you say he's trying to use the lower body to take stress off. And I remember one of my friends who got to know Tim Lincecum and his father. And I guess the father was an engineer, and they designed Tim Lincecum's wind up and motion to minimize stress on the arm. And it was like an engineering feat to do that. And that's why Lincecum was so successful and had so few injuries for most of his career.
Right.
So I'm wondering if, maybe this is like a little twist to this. Because I know Musgrove works out here in Poway, with a private pitching coach.
And he's worked out at Point Loma Nazarene, where the Padres built a mound to study pitchers' deliveries.
Perfect.
They videotape everything.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot more science now than there's just stuff.
Exactly.
So we'll see what Joe has got to show. Let's talk Dodger baseball. Mookie Betts back in the lineup. Dodgers do a U-turn, won't play short, will play right, won't lead off, will bat second behind Ohtani. Ohtani's really tired. I mean, you can figure he plays every game, takes every bat, does all the prep as a DH. He kind of looks gassed. So getting Betts back at this time is important. Ohtani's only hitting .231 since the All-Star break. That's
Really?
kind of amazing.
Wow.
So here comes Betts. They're going to make a decision. Either Ahmed Rosario or Miguel Vargas will be the starting shortstop. Both of those guys are Gold Glove guys. They're not putting Betts at second because Gavin Lux is like hitting .380 since the All-Star break. After a miserable first half, he's found his stroke, and he's playing really, really good confidence. The pitching staff, Buehler will be brought back on Wednesday to start in Milwaukee. Buehler just went 5 1/3 in his last rehab outing, gave up only 1 run, and look really strong. So he's back. Yamamoto is throwing a bullpen in Milwaukee. He will throw a sim game in St. Louis. He might be back by a week from tonight for the Dodgers to join them in the rotation. They still got problems at the back end of the bullpen. My theory is you traded for Michael Kopech. He's been unhittable since you got him from the White Sox. Let him be the closer. Don't trust Evan Phillip. Don't trust Trinan. Move Kopech back and let him come out and throw gas in the 9th inning because their bullpen has butchered a bunch of leads in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And this is really bad. They just lost another young pitcher, River Ryan, who came up from Oak City, had 3 good outings in a row. His ERA was 1.33. Gone for the year, injured forearm. John, it's the 6th young pitcher they've lost this season. Same malady. Forearm tightness, elbow ligament, whatever. I'm wondering if somebody in the analytics department should sit down and evaluate whether we're having the guys throw the wrong pitches or too much of one pitch that's led to the demise of all these guys. If you look at the Dodger pitching staff, I mean, they have now lost River Ryan. They had already lost Emmett Sheehan in spring training. They lost Kyle Hurt at the start of the season. Dustin Mays had 2 setbacks. On top of that, you got Bobby Miller is still in the minor leagues and has not come back, plus Buehler. That's 6 of your top young arms, all, for the most part, with the same malady. Something's not right with the Dodgers' handling or mishandling of the pitchers. So with this surgery with Ryan River, he now becomes the 18th Dodger pitcher on the DL this season. That's a staggering amount. And by the way, they're in first place.
How do they stay in first place? It's amazing. I guess the Padres have this nice advantage with that Point Loma Nazarene facility. You know, we can work on these things and not, grind out people's bodies and damage their arms. I want to go back to what you said earlier. Ohtani still batting leadoff, even though his batting average is low. Mookie too. Remember back in the day that there was like a stereotype for who was a leadoff? It was always a Ricky Henderson type.
He's going to get on base and go steal second.
Yeah.
Although Ohtani gets on base and does steal, but Ohtani as a leadoff guy can also hit it 448 feet.
Yeah, but so they're changing the strategy. Put your best guy at the top, so maybe they'll get 5 at-bats in a game. But it used to be like the fast guy was 1, the steady Eddie contact guy was number 2,
and then the power guys.
And then the power guys 3, 4, 5, and it just seems that the philosophy has changed.
Well, the Dodgers are doing something different. I do think you hit on something. More at-bats with Ohtani, more opportunity for him to park one at 448 feet from home plate.
Yeah, exactly.
Last topic on the table, the Angels. They win some, thank you, Ron Washington. They lose some because they're too young. Zach Neto has really become an established good player for the Angels. Logan O'Hoppe has done very well. Chanel, the first baseman, after a lousy start, is hitting with a little bit of power. I'm waiting for the phone to ring. What's the area code in Salt Lake City? Is it 801?
801.
Yeah, somebody call 801 Salt Lake City Bees. Johnny Cueto just threw 7 innings, gave up 1 run in his last rehab start for the Angels AAA Farm Club. They just signed him about 3 weeks ago. He had been in the Texas farm system.
Yeah.
So he got to Salt Lake City. So he's put together a couple of back-to-back pretty good dominant performances. Just south of 40.
Exactly.
But the dude can still throw it, and he's obviously still competitive. And right now, they still need some sort of pitching somewhere in the middle of that rotation for the final 5 weeks of the season. Angels, it's just a tough grind of a season as they sit there sub 500, another year without the playoffs. And Arte Moreno is still MIA in terms of making an appearance to talk to people, talk to the media, etc. And as general manager's in the final 5 weeks of his contract. So your thoughts on Halos?
You know, I want to be an Angels fan. I want to have like a skin in the game, a dog in the hunt in the American League, but it's just so damn hard. You know, and then my other American League team I grew up with, the Oakland A's, and that's even worse. So, I mean, what do you do? You know, how do you follow American League baseball? It's a lot harder these days for SoCal people.
I concur with you. Next topic on the table, speaking of bad, this is awful.
Awful. The CHISOX. This has been an unbelievable losing streak.
They just fired everybody. They fired their manager, Pedro Grifal. They fired his top 3 coaches he brought with him. This is the end of a year and a half of chaos. I'm not sure why he got hired immediately, though the general manager who hired him is no longer there either. He had been in the Kansas City farm system. They had problems with, quote, the culture in the clubhouse right from the get-go when Grifal got there. And they weren't very good. And then the new general manager, Chris Getz, decided we're going to tear this thing down to the studs and totally rebuild it. It started with the trade of Chris Sale to the Atlanta Braves, and that progressed through all types of pitchers that were escorted out of there, including obviously Dylan Cease, Lucas Giolotto, who physically broke down after he left there. And then they've tried to move some of their younger players. It's just an unmitigated disaster. So they are sitting there right now at 28-91. 28-91. It's apparent to me they're going to break the New York Mets all-time worst record set in the 1960s when the Mets went 40-120. Sox are going to break that. But where they are at this hour, 28-91, it's the worst record in baseball since 1916. And their team batting average, John, is .218. That is the worst collective team batting average since Fido was a pup and the pup's great-grandfather was a White Sox fan. It's the worst batting average of a major league team since 1910.
1910?
Jerry Reinsdorf, wear it. Own it. Your franchise. Have you ever seen anything so sad?
Yeah, this is crazy. Now, the White Sox won the World Series like about 20 years ago, right?
Yes.
And that was like a blip. I mean, you go back, you know, prior to that for 30, 40 years, there was nothing. When I think of the White Sox, I always think of those old uniforms when they wore the shorts. Remember that?
That was the Bill Vick days.
Yeah, that was like in the 70s, though, I think.
Well, I think of the White Sox. I think of the 59 Go-Go Sox, Louis Aparicio, and all those really good White Sox players that beat the Dodgers in the World Series.
And then they had that little guy that they brought in kind of as a stunt to play, right?
Well, that was the St. Louis Browns, Eddie Goodell.
Oh, Eddie Goodell.
But that was a Vick-owned team in the 1940s.
That's what it was.
Yeah, Eddie Goodell, the midget. So this, I'll tell you what, it's miserable on the south side of Chicago. And all you got to look forward to is the bleeping winter is coming to Chicago on top of a bad summer of baseball. But think about that.
Side of town.
Oh, my goodness.
Leroy Brown.
The worst, the statistics are staggering. I mean, the worst batting average since 1910. And at this hour, the worst one-loss record of a team since 1916. That's Babe Ruth era.
That's insane.
That's a few curveballs ago.
Yeah, a few.
So those are the baseball notes. Now, we're going to talk a lot of football. Let's talk about what I saw on Saturday afternoon.
With the Chargers? That was a tough go, wasn't it?
Oh, the Bolts got battered by the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, here's all this enthusiasm. Jim Harbaugh's debut as head coach. All things new. New culture. Look at his resume, etc. They came out. Of course, they don't have Justin Herbert. I understand that. He wouldn't have played anyhow. But they came out and they looked terrible. They got a problem at backup quarterback because of Herbert continues to get hurt, and he's had a lot of different injuries the last 3 years. They have to hand the ball to Easton Stick. Well, last season, when Easton Stick, the backup, became the starter, he went 0-4. And yeah, they'd move the ball up and down the field. He couldn't get him into the end zone. They were 0-4. What I saw Saturday was just horrible. They went 25 minutes without a first down. The Chargers did in the first half with Easton Stick at quarterback.
Wow.
They went 0-for-7 on third down conversions. They had 6 straight 3-and-outs in the first half. They had no yardage. They had no offense at all.
6 straight.
And this was with their number one offensive line that includes 3 first-round draft picks. They didn't block very well in protection. They couldn't run block worth a bleep. I mean, it was bad. And Seattle eventually went on to win the game 16-3, and the Chargers were just not competitive. So suddenly, they got issues here. Neither one of their top 2 running backs was allowed to play, protecting them against injuries. They don't know when Herbert's going to be back. It could be another 3 weeks. He's got at least another week in the boot, and then 2 weeks soft preparation to get him ready to practice, and then 1 full week of practice before they start the season. I don't think you can trust Easton Stick any longer. He couldn't do it last year when he's a 4-year veteran. He's been in systems. They're going to have to go find a backup quarterback. Now, they just signed, and this is interesting. They signed a kid from San Diego. His name is Luis Perez. He played small college football at, I think it was East Texas State. Set all kinds of passing records in Division II. And he played in the spring leagues. He played in the Alliance of American Football. He played this past spring in the, quote, UFL. I'm sure you watched every game. I didn't. Wasn't on my radar. Anyhow, the kid can chuck it. The kid moves the pocket. He's kind of dynamic, a little bit undersized. He's always been knocking at the door for a chance. He's been in some NFL camps. They just signed him. They need to find out whether this kid can actually play. So he will have had 2 full weeks of practice under his belt. Maybe he should play the second preseason game just to see. Because I don't think Max Duggan, TCU quarterback, he's there. He didn't show anything. Another kid, Casey Bauman from small college football, he's street free agent. He played. He didn't show anything. So maybe they should give the San Diego kid, I want to say he might be from Eastlake or maybe Chula Vista, Luis Perez. Give him an opportunity. They need to find the right guy. And if not, they need to go into the marketplace and find a true backup quarterback. Name comes to mind that I kind of like is C.J. Beathard, formerly 49ers, currently down in Jacksonville. Might be available. You know, trade a damn 7th-round pick and get a veteran in here who's played some. Either that or, do you know Joe Flacco's phone number? So
How old is that guy?
Yeah, well, 39, 40, but he played well. He came off the couch the middle of last season and played Minnesota. Like, you know, who needs preseason? Screw that. They're going to have to solve this because Herbert has had a history of suffering some significant injuries each of the last 3 seasons. Although he is your stud, he's your guy. But Jim Harbaugh's got a lot of work to do. The defense played much more aggressively, a lot of blitzes. They kind of revealed a lot of stuff, which I was surprised because I don't think you normally reveal those many blitz packages in a preseason game, but they sent a lot of people. But it didn't help because Seattle made plays. And by the way, one of the things we've talked extensively about, because they got rid of their top 3 defensive tackles. The only guy back is Morgan Fox. Rest of them are kids. Seattle, without its top 2 running backs, Seattle ran for 155 on the Chargers defensively. So not the coming out party we expected from Harbaugh coming from Michigan. So he's got 2 games left in preseason to try to get this thing cranked up and get it ready. But I'm disappointed in Easton Stick because he had a great college career and you saw some things when he would play in years prior. He looked miserable. And all those number 1 draft picks in the offensive line didn't look very good either, which kind of really stunned me. So that's my theory on the Bolts. I'm sure somebody out there has got an opinion, but yours is?
Well, you said in the best 15 that Jim Harbaugh does not want a quarterback controversy for the number 2 spot.
Yeah, he didn't want to answer any questions about Easton Stick or Luis Perez or somebody from out there.
Really? And the kid from TCU, man, he was really good in college.
That's college.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I had good vibes about that guy.
A little bit undersized.
Yeah, okay.
That's a big issue.
But, you know, Herbert has been injured. He was injured, obviously, last year with the finger. It was the finger, right?
Finger, and the year before that, it was the ribs, and fractured ribs, and he played through that. He's tough as nails, but they got to be a little bit worried about if there's another injury, what's the backup plan and can the backup play? Because Easton Stick, like I said, their season was falling apart last year. It was his game. He played 4 in a row, and he could not get the sucker in the end zone.
Pick up the phone, call Craig Wheelahan.
No. So that's where we are. Hey, Fans Forum, chat box is open. Jump on board. You want to talk Padres, Dodgers, Angels, or the baseball pennant races, and you got a comment on the Chargers situation, feel free to join us right now. Join us in Fans Forum right now. We get to halftime. This podcast is brought to you by his best friend, my best friend, DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores and a new one opening in Orange County. What do you like most about what DIXIELINE provides the people of San Diego County?
Yeah, I was just down there this morning at the sports arena office, and they're installing this new financing program. So if you're going to buy doors or windows or upgrade your decking, there's options to do no interest or a lot of different cool financing programs, so you can kind of set up your house.
DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. Fix it, build it. We guarantee you will enjoy it in 2024. Back here as we get ready for the second half, couple of business items. X marks the spot. You're all on social media. I want you to join my team, Hacksaw's Twitter All-Star Team. X marks the spot. Just go to @Hacksaw1090, @Hacksaw1090, and hit the follow button and join us. Also, you like sports? Check my website every morning. Unbelievable amount of sports. It's all written. You give me 5 minutes, I'll tell you everything there is in the world of sports. And when you go to my website, right on the front page, there's a big orange box. Fill it out. Become part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group because we make prize packages available to each of our followers. You get the chance also to get some inside information. That's the Insiders Group. Want you to share. Tell everybody what we do on Mondays and Thursdays. Want you to subscribe. That way you'll get alerts every time we put something up on the YouTube channel. I promise John won't put things up at 3 a.m. any longer. So you'll get notifications when new stuff goes up on my YouTube channel. And when we're done, you are taking over control of this podcast. It's called Fans Forum.
Yeah, people are already piling in. Everyone wants to talk football now suddenly. The NFL is going. There's people asking questions about the Rams, the Chargers, the Raiders. So if you got a question or comment for Hacksaw in the world of sports, type it in the live chat on Facebook, YouTube, or X. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum.
Okay, Fans Forum coming up. Let's go now to the second half of our Monday bonus podcast. And he said football. I watched a lot of football, and we got a lot of topics talking about football.
Yeah, I caught some of the games, and it's fun to see some of these young quarterbacks.
All right, let's start. Denver. I don't know. They must have been sandbagging the media in Denver. Here's Sean Payton putting out the depth chart for the first preseason game and gotten Bo Nix third on the depth chart. Never made a mention that Bo was going to play. Bo played. Bo played really well. Bo Nix went 15 for 21 for 125 yards and a touchdown. Zach Wilson came off the bench, the third-string quarterback. He threw for 117. Bo Nix made no mistakes. I read what they wrote this morning. They really praised the kid's accuracy. They really praised Bo Nix's composure. Of course, you spend 7 years in college. I guess you'd get some experience under the belt. So that's the big story there. That, to me, looks like you got yourself the quarterback. In Minnesota, they started Sam Darnold at quarterback. He was adequate. And then they went to J.J. McCarthy, the rookie from Michigan. And all he did was throw for 188 and 2 touchdowns, and the Vikings come from behind win over the Raiders. J.J. McCarthy, he was pretty impressive. Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams did not play Hall of Fame game, did play this weekend. They blitzed his brains out. He broke containment, moved the pocket, was really accurate throwing down the field. They really like what they saw from Caleb Williams in Chicago. Wound up with 93 passing and I think 13 or 14 yards running the football, moving the pocket. That was impressive. Washington, Jaden Daniels, the kid out of LSU, he was a second pick in the draft. He only played one possession, but he did a lot of cool things. He audibleized out of some alignments that he didn't like what he saw at the line of scrimmage. He threw for 45 yards. He also ran for another first down in one series for the Washington Commanders. That was pretty impressive. In Atlanta, they didn't play Kirk Cousins. They played Michael Penix a lot. He threw for 104. Now, he was a little bit erratic. They were blitzing his brains out. He was He wasn't panicked. He was moving the pocket. His accuracy went away. But Atlanta was pleased with what they got from the Washington Huskies quarterback, Michael Penix. In Pittsburgh, it wasn't a quarterback issue. Now, there was no Russell Wilson because of the calf problem. They did start the ex-Bear Justin Fields, and I think he went 6 for 7 for 57 yards, but he had a lot of pressure. And Pittsburgh's offensive line didn't play well, and there were 4 fumbles. A couple of them were fumbled snaps. The look on Mike Tomlin's face in the first half of his offensive line, he wasn't real happy. But Fields was pretty doggone competitive for the Steelers. New Orleans, we talked about this last week. This is quite a story. We're talking about the Fresno State young quarterback, Jake Haener. He underwent cancer surgery, skin cancer surgery last week.
Really? For
skin cancer on his face. He had 32 stitches. He played in the game this weekend for the New Orleans Saints. He threw for 107 with 32 stitches across his face because of the skin cancer procedure.
Wow.
So that's quite an interesting story. New England, you got to explain this one for me. I don't understand what's going on up there. You know, they spent that high number 1 pick on Drake May of North Carolina. They played Bailey Zappi, third-string quarterback the last couple years. He took the bulk of the snaps. And most people don't expect him to make the roster. Why would you not give Drake May more than 1 series? Drake May threw 3 passes in 1 possession and then sat. That makes no sense. You're paying a third-round draft pick beaucoup bucks. You got to get him ready. You get him ready in preseason. Now, I don't know. They say Jacoby Brissett, the journeyman, is going to be starting quarterback, but in an exhibition game, why wouldn't you play Drake May more? So that's an interesting story. And then what happened with the Rams? The Rams beat the Cowboys. I don't know if you saw this, John. On the final play of the game, the Rams beat the Cowboys with a quarterback that didn't play last year. Remember Stetson Bennett, University of Georgia?
Yeah.
Came to camp. He won 2 national titles with Georgia. Came to camp, played pretty well, left the team, mental health issues, sat out all year. Stetson Bennett came back to camp, has played pretty well in camp. He played a chunk of that Rams-Cowboys game. He threw for 244, moved the pocket, looked like Patrick Mahomes at times, running and throwing sidearm and all that. But he threw a game-winning touchdown pass on the final play of the game, and he was very impressive. Oh, by the way, he did throw 4 interceptions. He was putting the ball in places that, whoa, you shouldn't put the ball there. But it's a preseason game, and he's a rookie. But, boy, he showed no fear, standing in the pocket and making plays and having to scramble, making the right decision. So I think, the arrow is kind of pointed up there. By the way, the other quarterback he went against, Cowboys-Rams, was Trey Lance. Remember, former Green Bay Packer quarterback?
No, 49er.
49ers, highly regarded. Anyhow, Trey Lance, he threw for 232 all-purpose yards, run and throws. He acquitted himself pretty well. And in Dallas today, they're talking about the potential. Maybe he's going to be the backup quarterback because he didn't get flustered. And again, he's not a raw rookie. He's got a little bit of maturity, having been in NFL camps now for 2 straight years. But Trey Lance played pretty well. Stetson Bennett outdid him. So those are the storylines around the NFL about quarterbacks. So pick a name, pick a team. We'll talk about it.
Pick a name, pick a team. I caught a decent portion of the Bronco-Colts game because I was interchanging that with the Padres as I was going through Sunday. Jason Stidham got the start, but I'll tell you what, he just seemed to throw these little dink passes, little 4 or 5 yard passes, never really went downfield. But you're right. When Bo Nix got in there, man, it was electric. That kid's impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. So that's weekend 1 of NFL preseason games. You want to talk about other football teams? Rams fans, you're invited to be part of this podcast. Jump on board. I was pretty impressed with Stetson Bennett. Okay, let's talk college football for just a minute.
Yeah, San Diego State had their big scrimmage at Snapdragon.
Sean Lewis, he's on the clock. Review's not very good. First red and black scrimmage, they just really struggled offensively. And I know we're saying, Lee, it's the first preseason scrimmage. They've only been together for a while. Well, that's not necessarily true. They've been together practicing, walkthroughs, meetings. This brand new offense have been together since February. And they had all the spring ball, and now they've had a couple of weeks of this. They got 2 more weeks to figure this thing out. But they did not move the ball well at all. They've had some injuries in camp. There were dropped passes. There were penalties that called big plays back. But I saw enough flash to say, yeah, the more snaps and reps that A.J. Duffy, the Florida State transfer, or Danny O'Neal, the high school recruit, are going to get, the probably better, more productive they're going to be. The big story, I think, coming out of this first Aztec scrimmage was the third quarterback, kid from Oakland by the name of Javance Johnson. And he threw for about, I want to say he threw for 84 yards, and he moved the pocket and he ran some. Now, he's big. He's 6'4". All these other quarterbacks are smaller in stature. So I was impressed with that. Marquez Cooper, 1,000-yard rusher every year at Kent State, Ball State, transfer in, had 2 big runs, first possession, then they sat him down. I was impressed with that. Lucky Sutton, sophomore, led them in rushing with 79 yards, merits more playing time with Cooper at running back. And Jalen Armstead broke off one big run. There was one big catch and run. One play was called back by a holding penalty. He's always shown little flashes. So the running back room at San Diego State looks more impressive than anything else at San Diego State. So that being said, we still got time. He's still got, in essence, 3 weeks, 2 full weeks of practice, and then the week to get prepared for the game against Texas A&M Commerce, which is the opener. They got to get this thing nailed down, because right after that, they get Oregon State and they get Washington State, and the schedule gets really tough once they get beyond Texas A&M Commerce and the home opener. Biggest disappointment to me, could you please explain to me where all the football fans in this community have gone? All the displaced, deposed Charger fans, Aztec alums, they had 2,000, if that was what they had, 2,000 for the scrimmage, with a coach that's got a good resume coming in the front door and the ideology that they're going to throw the hell out of the football. Where are the fans? 2,000. Man, that's gut-wrenching to me. And John Riley says,
First of all, I love this headline. It's a hacksaw headline. Sean Lewis is on the clock. I didn't go to the scrimmage, but I was reading about it. Now the fans are upset because they closed off half the stadium and they were only be able to sit in the sun and not the shade, which has always been an ongoing controversy. But I remember that there were a lot of other quarterbacks in the system. There was that Kyle Crum kid. There was another young guy whose name I can't pronounce, but who was highly regarded and I think was a redshirt freshman last year. He might have been from Hawaii or
transferred out.
He transferred out.
Yeah.
So there's just been so much movement on that roster. I don't even know who the heck is on the team.
Yeah, it's almost a brand new football team. So at the end of the day, a lot of new pieces with a brand new playbook and a very strange system. It takes time to learn how to run this, but this is not Sean Lewis's first dance. He did this exact same thing last year at the University of Colorado, and prior to that, with lots of changes, he built Kent State into a really good Group of 5 program for the 2 years that he was there as head coach. So just give him some space. But I want to know where the football fans are. Somebody respond to me. How come San Diego State does not draw in football? We don't have an NFL team here. So get on Fans Forum and give me a rational reason why there are so many empty seats. You know, we talked last week about their season ticket holders. There's almost 16,000 the day they open Snapdragon Stadium. Their season ticket holder count now is about 8,500. They lost 50% of their tickets, and they've cut their prices twice. Now, they've screwed up over there. They charged enormous amounts of money for a product that wasn't very exciting to watch and didn't win. And now they've tried to get these fans back, and nobody's returned. So where are the football fans who follow me on this podcast? How come this community does not support San Diego State football, especially with the track record, the resume that Sean Lewis is bringing in? And you're right, he is on the clock.
Well, you know, the teams that they're going to play, whether they're Washington State, Oregon State, or the Mountain West teams, they're all going through the same trouble with their roster, right? And they have people having defections and transferring out. So this is almost like a wild card situation. I don't even know how this whole season is going to unfold.
Concur. Everybody's got new faces, new places. And, you know, the top 4 veteran coaches in the conference retired after last season. You know, Fresno State was by product of a health issue, but then obviously Brady Hoke left or was forced out. And what happened at Fresno State with Tedford, what happened in Wyoming, what happened at Utah State with the last minute firing of their coach, Blake Anderson. So there's a lot of new faces and a lot of new places. But in the bigger picture, we don't have an NFL team. Where did all those transplanted, deported Charger fans go? Because none of them are going to San Diego State, and the alumni isn't going to San Diego State.
They're all going to Petco Park.
Could be. Good point there. Okay, from one college football topic to the other.
Coach Prime, Neon Dion in the news.
Oh, my goodness. His opening press conference at Media Day at Boulder a year ago was pretty electric. You remember him standing there talking to the media and talking to his whole team and introducing them to the transfer portal, and he was going to do business his way, and they had that great start, and then they wound up going 4-8. And then they were hit with another massive defections. And then they were hit by this investigation of one of his sons who's filed for bankruptcy despite making big NIL money because his son was found guilty of assaulting a security guard, causing severe injuries, and lost a lawsuit. Now the kid is trying to hide the money, filed for bankruptcy. So at his season opening press conference, Coach Prime is taking questions from the media, and he won't take any critical questions. None. And then a CBS reporter who was there wanted to ask him. He said, I'm not talking to anybody from CBS. And this is a Denver CBS sports. I'm not talking to anybody from CBS. It's not on you, but I will not deal with anything as it relates to CBS. CBS is the one that broke the story about Shiloh Sanders and the lawsuit and the bankruptcy. CBS is the one that broke the story about the way he treated all the guys that he put into the transfer portal a year ago, etc. It was really ugly. And then he turned on the columnist of the two newspapers that cover the Buffaloes, one in Boulder and one in Denver. And they lashed back because the media in that market is just not going to take any crap. And they did a column yesterday. They called him fragile, a fraud, and feminine. Feminine. So Neon Dion's got a problem with the way he's doing business in Boulder. It's much deeper, obviously, now. But now he's created with this war with the media, the working media. At the end of the day, you don't win a war with the media. He only wanted to take questions that were favorable. He only wanted to take questions about some of the ads that he was doing and endorsements on TV. He did not want to take any hard-hitting football questions. And it's only just begun. And I'll tell you, the CU administration has taken a lot of crap right now from the media also for allowing this to happen to this football program. He's got his son. Shedeur is a great player. Should be a fairly high number one draft pick, but they have enough against him. And I still maintain, now they're going to the Big 12. Everybody's in grudge mode over the way he treated his players over the last couple of years. And I don't know if they're going to be better than 4-8. Might be worse than 4-8. And like I told you a year ago, before they started that final go-round of the Pac-12, people are going to run up scores. And what happened? People ran up scores. So that's the latest on Coach Prime.
Well, guess what, Lee? We're talking about Coach Prime. And I think that's what he wants right now. He wants the buzz around that program. He wants the attention. I saw the CBS bit because I think it was CBS Sportsline, like a national website. And he was like, dissing the local Denver CBS guy, which was kind of funny. But, I still like Coach Prime. I still like his swag and the way he carries himself. But he was being a bit of an a-hole in that press conference. But think about all the other crazy press conferences we've seen from college sports. I remember, who was the guy from Oklahoma State?
Gundy.
Which one?
Gundy.
Was it Dundee? Was he the one that said, I'm 40, I'm a man?
Mike Gundy.
Okay, yeah, that was. And there's been so many classic examples of these crazy press conferences. What's the craziest press conference you've been in?
Well, the worst one here, and I don't think the Aztecs football program has ever been the same. Remember 2 years ago, it's actually right as we were starting to do these podcasts. Might have been the first or second podcast we ever did. I had just come from an Aztec preseason football conference in which the AD and the coach, JD Wicker and Brady Hoke, got up and walked out.
Oh, yeah.
And this was all had to do with the Matt Ariza situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was as bizarre as anything I've ever experienced. I mean, I don't care that coach doesn't like the tone of my questions. I'm just doing my job. But that was bizarre. And to me, I don't think San Diego State football has ever recovered from what happened at that press conference. Because then they came out and they played and they had all the injuries at quarterback and they had a substandard season. And last year it got even worse. And quarterbacks left, and then Hoke got really aggravated because I asked him a question: is there something going on that your coaches can't coach up all this young talent they quarterbacked? Because they had no quarterbacks. They're playing a safety at quarterback for most of last season.
They did, yeah.
So it was just a disaster. So that was about as bizarre a press conference as I've ever seen. And it doesn't, you're the coach, I'm the reporter. It doesn't have to be confrontational. just ask the question. It's probably legitimate. Answer the question. If you can't answer it all, and I understand not talking about injuries, but let's just be civil towards each other. Because the worst thing any coach can do is create a war with the media, because the media always has the last word, whether that's being a talk show guy, or that's being a columnist, or that's being an anchor. And once you step over that line and think you can bully the media, most of the media, some of the media, is going to stand up and say, no, not me. I'm doing my job. I mean, I told Brady Hoke, and Brady Hoke and I are really good friends, and I have a lot of respect for him. It's too bad it didn't work and he retired. But I stood up at the end of that press conference as he was storming out. He made some crack to me about the tone of my question, and my response is, I am here to do my job. Let me do my job so you do your job and answer my questions. I like Brady Hoke, and we parted as good friends, and we stayed in contact since he retired. But don't create a civil war with the media, because you don't win a civil war with the media. And then if you lose on top of it, that makes it even worse.
Well, a smart coach will use the media as a tool for their public relations for the program, and make it an asset, for their overall marketing campaign. But sometimes, they get in grudge mode. But think about these other press conferences. I think of Allen Iverson, talk about practice, and then Jim Mora with playoffs. And then wasn't there one back in the day with Hal McRae when he was the manager of the Kansas City Royals, and he was like throwing the phone around or something? And those are just wildly entertaining.
That's just the pressure of the job. And when it doesn't meet your expectations, you tee off on whoever working member of the media is close. So I think, mark my word, we're sitting here, I think this is going to be a real hard season on Boulder. And if he's created all these enemies out on the other side of the podium who represent the media, it's no need for that at all. Because a year ago this time, everybody was excited. You and I talked extensively about CU Buffalo, must-see TV. Well, it didn't work out. But then just the way he's just continued this diatribe about who he is and what he represents and what you should do. I'm telling you how to do your damn job, John. You think you're like that?
No. But you know what? Big 12 is going to be a lot tougher schedule this year, too.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, college football, feel free. You got an opinion about Coach Prime, his best friend. Jump on board right now, Fans Forum. Last topic on the table before the fans take over this podcast. I thought this was cool.
Yeah, the Paris Olympics, that closing ceremony with Tom Cruise, it was unbelievable.
Let me give you some words, just kind of came off the top of my head as I watched it last night. I thought the opening presentation, the Parade of Nations on the boats on the Seine River, I just thought that was great theater. What we saw last night, closing ceremonies, the star show, Tom Cruise, all that, great artistry. The color and pageantry of what we saw, opening and close, amazing. I thought NBC did a phenomenal job. I thought Tirico, balancing all the different events, the different co-hosts, the guests. I thought what NBC did, they deserved a gold star too. I think that, they overcame the adversity of the pollution in the River Seine. That was a big issue, and it's still a big issue because now a whole number of athletes that swam in different events, like there's 4 to 5 of them have gotten serious infections, if you will, by virtue of the pollution. That might have been the only mistake. Deep in my heart, my biggest fear about the Olympics was terrorism. Was there going to be something happening? Because that's part of our global life now. Luckily, there was not. Noah Lyles had COVID, but what a dynamic personality. He ran the final race with a fever of 102. Not quite sure how he's allowed to run in a race with COVID, but he did test clean after having been sick for 2 days in a row. Simone Biles, I mean, what a spectacular individual. And we talked the other day about what Simone Biles represents, not as just a gymnast, but what she represented to young athletes who are having mental health problems. I thought that was spectacular. I thought the Eiffel Tower, what a great scene setter that was. One of the coolest things was to see beach volleyball. They built the beach right down on the flat ground with the tower right behind. What a cool sight that was. Biles, Katie Ledecky, U.S. track and field stars, won all those golds the final week to give the U.S. The overall championship. the marathon, the Olympic marathon that was run around and through the grounds at the Palace of Versailles.
That was cool.
That was cool. And I've been in that Palace of Versailles, and I was speechless. And now you see them running the marathon, all about that. USA basketball, I think it must have been a challenge for Steve Kerr to keep all those athletes healthy because they all wanted to play, and there was only one basketball, and you can only play 5 at a time. But he was able to, obviously on talent, get the gold medal, although they had some close games along the way. But that must have been really hard. And he's announced he's not going to come back and coach the Olympics again. So maybe that's a byproduct. And obviously, to me, the most heartwarming story was the 2 Olympians who won gold from Ukraine, got back on the plane with their medals and their flag, and flew back to Kiev, which is bombed out. That's amazing for them to accomplish that with everything that was going on in their personal lives. So those are some of the snapshots that I remember. And I watched a lot. And even though we had the time zones, which could make it really hard to follow, the fact that NBC's network, they own all these other stations. You know, you could watch it on CNBC and MSNBC and USA Today and True TV. That was cool because if you found the listings as to when a specific event was, like I wanted to watch the men's 1500 broken down distance runner that I was, and I wanted to watch the end of the marathons. I could find what channel they were on, and I could flip it, and I could see it live. And then at 7 o'clock, when they did the packaged highlights of every event, I just thought NBC, that was a gold medal television performance, considering locales, different announced teams, the whole logistics of getting it done. And in dealing, it wasn't their feed. It was the Olympic video feed that they had to broadcast off of. I just thought NBC did a great job. So those are my snapshots. The only thing I have to say in closing, merci Paris.
Hey.
I thought it was spectacular. Your turn.
Mike Tirico's a pro, isn't he?
Oh, he's great. He's the most complete guy since Al Michael. And I think Al Michael was one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. I mean, he has the right temperament, to do an athletic event, but a cultural event, a worldwide event. I thought he was fantastic.
You were big on Snoop Dogg and Jim Fallon, weren't you? And Martha Stewart. I knew you'd say it.
We saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Snoop out there when they're bringing the game back to LA, which was great. You talked about the marathon, and I watched that going by Versailles, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I was noticing that the runners were, the leading runners were going down whatever part of the track they were on. And there's that kind of that fence line, that metal fence. And then the fans are on the other side. And some of the fans would try to run alongside just to kind of get a sense of the pace. And they couldn't keep up because these marathon runners were running the equivalent of like a 4-minute something mile.
A sub 5-minute mile at the 21st mile of the race. Think about that.
That's insane.
And running up some of the hills were just deathly.
It was unbelievable. And then I was watching, I think it was the bronze medal match for men's beach volleyball, and Qatar had a team and they were really good. And I was thinking, how often have I seen Qatar in the Olympics? But boy, they were really talented. I mean, just so many great stories. But what do you think about this whole Jordan Chiles controversy with her bronze medal maybe getting removed?
Yeah, there's going to be some type of litigation, and I think the IOC, it's going to go to some type of court, and they will discuss it. I think she's going to wind up keeping the medal as they go. But I just thought the events were great. I thought the pictures were great. I mean, and I watched so much. This is probably the most Olympics that I have watched in a long time because I had access to all these different channels this time, and I wasn't bothered by, was it 8 or 9 hours from here to Paris? I mean, I just thought it was really spectacular.
I know when I was going through my DirecTV stream, and I'd go to the sports section and I'd see them all. And then I would see some that were like regular definition and others were 4K definition. So it was interesting to be able to flip between those two. But you're right. It's just the way they handled the time difference and presented the highlights. It felt like I was watching it live, even though I knew it was recorded.
Like I said, merci Paris. All right, your turn. Fans Forum. You got topics about the Olympics? Feel free. I forgot to ask you. P.S. Addendum question. You please explain to me how the hell you're scoring breakdancing?
Oh, yeah. Did you see that Australian woman was doing all these like weird things? She wasn't even like a real breakdancer.
And how do you score rock climbing?
Well, speed probably, right?
Okay.
to get up to the top. But there was the one CNN reporter, I can't remember his name. He's a bald guy, but he's really fun. And he was interviewing the athletes, and he was interviewing one of the track guys and talking about breakdancing, and they were busting moves there and having a fun time with it. I like how the Olympics bring in new sports and change with the times. For me, I was a kid, I raced BMX in the 1970s and 80s, and to see it as an Olympic sport for me is a thrill. But breakdancing, I'm not sure about that one. It's also, how do the hell you score that?
And I think the other thing, on a more serious note, they did on Sunday, on the final day, they did a segment with Jimmy Roberts from NBC, who is a sports and news reporter. And he did a thing on the fans from France and how they love America. And then he combined it with the invasion of Normandy.
Oh, wow.
And then he combined it with his father, who took part in D-Day, and his father, who wound up going to northern France and was in combat and took out a sniper's nest in a farmhouse at some small village. And Jimmy Roberts was talking about his dad, who just passed in 2007, I think it was, talking about what his father told him. They had pictures of the father when they were liberating France and all that. And he actually was in the little village, walked the same land with the mayor of that little village, and they talked about what happened in June of 44 when they liberated the village. And he relayed the story of his father sitting behind a hedgerow, taking out Nazi snipers in a farmhouse. And then they walked to where the farmhouse was. The foundation is still there, but the farmhouse is gone. I thought that was so cool. I have an affection for Omaha Beach and Normandy because my family was there. But that was such a neat thing. It was a change of pace. It wasn't Snoop Dogg, and it wasn't Martha Stewart or Jimmy Fallon or, breakdancing and all that. But I thought that, and they saved it for the final day. So I thought that was just a cool sidebar story. Jimmy Roberts did such a great job.
You are such a historian buff, U.S. military buff, and I know you've been to Omaha Beach.
And Normandy.
Yeah, and Normandy. So you must have just eaten that up.
Oh, I just sat there. I was mesmerized. And the fact that he was there, not talking about just about it, but the fact that he was there and actually walking through the fields where his father was as they were chasing down these Nazis. Then they went to where the farmhouse was, behind a hedgerow and behind a stone fence. And he talked about shooting and killing the snipers, because then they went to the cemetery where the guys from his father's unit who were taken out by the snipers were buried. Oh, it was really cool. Maybe go to NBCnews.com. I bet you could probably find it. It wound up being about a 7-minute segment. It was really good, really emotional. So that's my theories about the Olympics and NBC. It's your turn to join us now on Fans Forum. You got an opinion. We want you to jump on board. This podcast, Monday Bonus Podcast, brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. You got projects, they've got materials. You want ideas and advice? Think about them. DIXIELINE Lumber. John, this is your segment. Ready, set, go.
Ready, set, go. All right, let's go here to Greg. Hey, Lee, is there a way to listen to some of your past Chargers broadcasts? I miss those classic Touchdown San Diego. Great show, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I don't know how much of our play-by-play you could find on the internet. I do know one thing that we put together because I work with NFL Films on it. If you Google Chargers Road to the Super Bowl, they have, I believe it's about 28-minute feature on the Chargers Road to the Super Bowl, 94 season, the AFC Championship win in Pittsburgh. It's really cool. I had remembered it, then I had forgotten it, and somebody brought it to my attention about a year ago. It's there. So just go Chargers Road to the Super Bowl. It's produced by NFL Films. That's the biggest package that I know that's available. It's got all the highlights. I told him about it. He went crazy.
Yeah, it was great. And by the way, we have a recorded version of a recorded podcast that we haven't released yet about the Chargers Super Bowl season and the road to the Super Bowl. And so I'm looking forward to releasing that at some point.
We'll promote it. We've got a whole number of things in the hopper that we've been working on behind the scenes, and we'll tell you when we're going to launch that. But yes, there is a Road to the Super Bowl podcast that John, and actually it's a 2-segment podcast that we have done. Greg, thank you for the question. Next one.
All right, let's go to Dave Dog. He says, what do you think of the Raiders quarterback?
They're going to name a quarterback this week. I don't know who it's going to be, Gardner Minshew has got more experience, obviously, than Aiden O'Connor. I went back today and did some checking on Gardner Minshew's statistics. He throws touchdowns. I think he's thrown 58 touchdowns. He throws interceptions. He's thrown 24 picks. He's taken 78 sacks, which is a hell of a lot. And he's fumbled 30 times. Mr. Turnover. You know, I think, what was the word that I used to describe Gardner Minshew? Gunslinger?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a little bit of all that. I think he's going to wind up being the guy because he has to be the guy because he's got more experience and he can make plays downfield, but he'll drive Antonio Pierce crazy if he's fumbling and taking sacks. I think he started I think he's played 48 games and he's taken 78 sacks. And he's turned it over just an absolute ton. So it's a big issue.
You remember back like when the Chargers had Drew Brees as the starter in the very beginning.
And Phillip Rivers was the backup.
Yeah, and then for a while, Flutie was in the mix there too. And I remember that Brees would fumble a lot, and it drove Schottenheimer crazy. Yeah. And they ended up switching him out.
Yeah, well, Flutie was there before. Then Brees got drafted. Flutie started. Brees became the guy. Then Brees played, and he was competitive, but they weren't a great team at that time. They're trying to build this thing. And then he got hurt on the last game he played before free agency, and we thought, oh, my goodness, this is terrible. Suffered a terrible labrum injury, and who knew whether the surgery would work. And he had only one offer when he post-surgery, and he went to New Orleans, and then the rest is history. They made the investment. They took the gamble. Miami did not, and Brees became a superstar for Sean Payton. And then, obviously, after Brees left, then Rivers just gave us what I think might be a Hall of Fame type set of statistics over the course of his career. So Chargers were really fortunate. I mean, they went from a great legend in Fouts to a short period in which Stan Humphries got them there, then to Brees, then to Rivers.
Yeah, that was just a lot of great memories of the Chargers. But going back to the Raiders, do you think it's Minshew that's going to be QB1?
I think it has to be, only just because he's got the ability to put the ball in the end zone. But they've sure got, if they're going to throw the ball, I mean, they've got wide receivers all over the place, led by Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. They got 2 tight ends, including Brock Bowers from Georgia and a second-year kid, Mike Mayers. So they've got skill guys to catch the ball. They think they've fixed the offensive line. They've tried really hard, but I think they got a massive hole at running back because Josh Jacobs has gone to Green Bay. So I do think the defense is going to be better. I think Christian Wilkins coming in from Miami, I think what a theft that was to get him because he's big and he's active. He's not Aaron Donald, the Rams legend, but he's damn close to being Aaron Donald. So I think the Rams will be much better defensively, but I guess Minshew has to be the guy just based on experience.
Right on. Okay, let's keep moving on here. Hey, this is actually a blast from the past. This is from Eric Groves. Hacksaw is the best. I was lucky enough to work at 690 in the 1990s, and I can confirm he is bleeping brilliant.
Thank you, Eric. You wrote it, or you read it just the way I wrote it when I emailed it to you. No, thank you. Now, we worked really hard, and we did sports talk radio really different. And the longer it goes, the more I think. A guy today on X put up a display of all the baseball trading cards they had of all of our talk show hosts. It was really cool. And it was Arash McCarthy, who was a sports writer in Los Angeles, I guess was a 690 fan, and he collected all this stuff back in the day. All of a sudden it flashed up on my computer. I said, hey, that's pretty cool. It's, it's of me, of Hartman and 40 and Jim Rome and our morning shows and Mason and Ireland and Mason and his other co-hosts. So it was kind of cool. But yeah, we did a lot of unique things. We don't appreciate how good that was till now, most, decades upon decades since. And everybody else around the country now realizes how great 690 was. We didn't appreciate it. We didn't understand the iconic following that we're building nationwide. We're just a bunch of young guys coming to sports talk and arguing with each other and arguing with the fans.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall, at a staff meeting at 690. Did you guys have them with you and Hartman and everyone else around a table?
Not very often. No. I had a different attitude. I don't read corporate memos and I don't go to corporate staff meetings. No,
you issue the memos.
No, we hardly had any staff meetings at all, unless it was something really special, like we're all taking the whole station to the Super Bowl, and this is what all you guys are going to do, and this is where you're going to be located. We didn't have very many, and they didn't interfere with us in terms of content. And our shows, we're going to do, I promise, John, we will do just a separate podcast strictly on sports talk radio in San Diego. But our shows were so different. And that's what made us great, is every show had a different take, a different spin, a different persona, a different approach with different interests. It's not like today where all they want to talk about is the third catcher on the Padres roster or Aztec basketball. We covered everything. And of course, we were on a big signal from Baja to the Canadian Rockies. And that was true. I made that up, but that was true because you could hear us at night in Vancouver, British Columbia. And I don't know if I ever told you this. I got a cassette from a guy who listened to a Charger Rams preseason game I did. I don't know what year it would have been. Might have been 1990 something. He was listening and he taped it in Lapland, which is the northern part of Finland.
Oh.
The signal, it was a night game, signal bounced over the North Pole and it went to Finland. And I could hear it. It was crackly, it was noisy, but he actually taped it on a cassette and sent me the cassette. It was really, really cool.
From Baja to the Arctic Circle.
Lapland.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Thank you for the question, Eric. Good to talk to you again.
All right, let's go here to Vic. He says, the Chargers belong in San Diego.
Damn right.
They have no business playing for a city who was never for them. 56 years in a community should matter more than playing in another team's new stadium.
Well, bolt back, plain and simple. It was all about greed. It was all about the owners. And by the way, scoreboard, baby. The scoreboard does not lie. In 36 years of ownership of the Chargers, the first family of football, that's what they call themselves. The Spanos family has 13 winning seasons in 36 years. The scoreboard does not lie. I wish they were here. They belong here. Unfortunately, they left here. And that's on them. That had nothing to do with fans or the media. And for the first time in all the years I've been here, the city and county put together a financial package to build a new stadium, and Spanos turned his back and the league let him go to LA. So like I've said at the end of the day, and I understand there's counseling for this, there's medication for this. At the end of the day, I want Justin Herbert to go 17-0, and I want Dean Spanos to go 0-17.
That line never gets old. The NFL, will they ever expand, do you think?
I think they will again. But again, they're going to drive the price. So the projection is global expansion. The projection is London, maybe Mexico City. That's the projection. But the price tag is going to be astronomical because they're the NFL. And you could say San Diego, great market, great weather, but we have no stadium. Anybody coming in the front door would have to build a stadium, pay for the stadium, and then pay the expansion fee. And there's not going to be any franchise transfers. Buffalo's building a new stadium. Jacksonville's in the middle of renovation, will be a 3-year renovation for the Jaguars Stadium there in Jacksonville. So those franchises are no longer in play to move, and the Raiders have already gone to Vegas. So I just don't see it happening in our marketplace. We might have a better chance to get an NHL franchise when the new sports arena is built, because who's building it, paying for it? Stan Kroenke.
Right on.
And Stan Kroenke owns who? Colorado Avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
And a whole bunch of other pro sports franchises, quote, knows how to get it done. So that's where we are.
Yeah, I don't ever think the NFL is coming back to San Diego.
Too bad.
I do wonder if there any other city in America would get another team. Because I think, to your point, I think it's going to go international before it's another domestic.
There's not a lot of other places to go. And then you got the whole scenario of where they're going to play. And it's got to be new and it's got to be big. And who's going to pay for it if it is?
Right, exactly.
Thank you for the question. Hope you join us again, DJ.
Okay, let's go to Chris. I'm a Rams fan, but I've always followed the Chargers because of your bleeping brilliance. For the love of God, can the Bolts please be done with Easton Stick already? All I can think is he must have compromising photos of Spanos. React to me.
Well, I think he fit pretty well under the last offensive coordinator they've had. And that's the problem, is they have a new offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, who wants this thing built on pocket passing. And Stick is more of a creative guy, move the pocket, throw on the run, maybe some design quarterback run pass option plays, etc. I don't see that happening. And the fact that Easton Stick had 4 games last season, after all these years as being a backup and being in the meetings and practicing, he had 4 games. He could not get him into the end zone. Now, granted, it wasn't a very good team. They go 5-12 last season. But at the end of the day, kind of you reach the point, and now you have to be worried because Herbert is hurt. Herbert has a history of getting dinged. you better have a backup that can play within Greg Roman's system. So if they do something, maybe they go find somebody that was in Baltimore that ran Roman's system, or in San Francisco, an ex-49er guy, which is, I brought up C.J. Beathard. That's one of the reasons I brought up his name. So I have to evaluate this over the next couple of weeks, because in this league, your starter, there's a likelihood he's going to get dinged. You better have a guy who can come in and play that system. And I mean, they've been together since the beginning of OTAs, right after the draft in April, and we're deep into August now, and he played so poorly. Now, to me, that I'd be really worried. Now, that's not going to make or break the team, because you do have a superstar in Justin Herbert, but boy, got to be concerned about that.
You should give a call to the guys at Winnipeg Sports Talk and see if there's a CFL quarterback they could get.
They're struggling. They got two quarterbacks that I really like, and I think their record, I was amazed. The Blue Bombers I think they're 3-6, which really stunned me, because I thought they might be one of the teams to beat in the CFL, but that's halfway through. They play an 18-game schedule, so we'll see what the second half of the season looks like.
Okay, let's move on. Let's go to Richard. And he says, are these arm injuries a problem with the Dodgers pitching culture, or how they're developed in the minor leagues?
I think it's a wide variety of the pitches they're throwing. As I mentioned early on, they just lost River Ryan, who had made 3 starts, had a 1.33 ERA. He's injured the forearm. He is the 6th young pitcher. I'm not talking about Kershaw. I'm not talking about the older relievers who got 100,000 miles on their arm. I'm talking young arm. He's the 6th young arm to go down with this, either elbow surgery or forearm strain. That leads me to believe it's the variety of pitches they're throwing. And maybe they need to back off so that not everybody's throwing the viciousness of the slurve, or the, what do they call it, sweeper. They need to examine each pitcher and the repertoire of each pitcher, because there's too many guys having surgeries. So to me, it's an issue. But the Dodgers, despite, River Ryan, like I said, he becomes the 18th pitcher to go on the DL this season in LA. That's major league and minor league. 18. That's unbelievable.
That's crazy. I mean, now just pretend that we brought Greg Maddux to the current day. His craftiness, he didn't throw that hard. Do you think he'd be successful today?
I think he would. I don't know that he'd want the grind. I mean, he enjoys retirement in Georgia and all that money he made. To be a coach, I mean, that's full-time job. I mean, that's every minute of every day. And you're trying to put out fires, and you're trying to deal with injuries, and you're trying to deal with the young pitcher's confidence, and, you're examining video till your eyes fall out of your head. I mean, that's why I'm so impressed with Ruben Niebla, the Padres pitching coach. I think he's done just a hell of a job. And I like Mark Pryor. I think he's a bright light. He's the Dodger pitching coach, used to be here. But they need to examine what's going on with it. I mean, these 6 young pitchers all breaking down, all with pretty much the same thing. That means to me, what you're teaching them, or the pitchers you're asking them to throw, are creating this real problem.
I think so. I think you're right. I mean, you did mention the sweeper pitch. That's a new term. I think we started hearing that last year.
It's kind of a harder slider. You grip it harder. This is what was explained to me by a former pitcher, is you grip it harder, which puts more strain here because you're gripping it harder, and you're throwing it with a vicious whip action, which creates more pressure and explosion here. So the ball goes in and whoosh.
Wow.
I mean, if you watch that stuff on TV, I mean, the Padre broadcast is great because you're actually behind the mound, and you can see where the pitches break. But you watch how wicked that stuff is, and these guys are throwing it. I will tell you, River Ryan made a comment yesterday, Sunday, that he felt he got hurt because of the pitch clock. Having to throw every 18 seconds or 20 seconds, and there's no time to stand on the mound. But I don't know what the big difference was between 24 seconds and 18 seconds in terms of having to get back up there and make the next pitch. But they have to evaluate what's happening to these guys.
It's like playing wiffle ball. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
With the ball doing all these crazy dips and dives.
Yeah, this at 102 miles an hour.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's go to James. James says, hey, how about Stetson Bennett for the Rams, throwing 4 picks, almost a 5th, but comes back and throws a game-winning TD. That's the preseason.
Well, it is, and this is a guy that's not played in a year. He did no football-related stuff while he was away for, quote, mental health. And he had been through a lot of pressure-packed situations at the University of Georgia 2 years in a row, and then it just kind of caught up to him emotionally. But he's back. He's healthy. He's very thankful for the Rams standing by him while he took this year off. and he's back and he's competing. And they may need him because quarterbacks do get dinged. And he threw balls where he should not have thrown balls. He knows that. But this was his first live fire action since actually a year ago after he left at the end of preseason to take care of himself. So let's give him some space. Dude does compete. Holy cow. I mean, and he's mobile. I mean, he did some rollout stuff that was pretty kind of cool. He's very different than Matthew Stafford at 6'5", standing in the pocket, rifle and stuff. So he'll get his chance. Hopefully he'll stay healthy, and can't have 4 pick games in the regular season, but you can live with it because he'll teach him through video. What'd you see? Why did you go there, etc.? What were your other choices? You should have just thrown the damn ball away. And the touchdown pass was weird. He ran left and he pulled up a la Patrick Mahomes and he slingshotted it right, going the other way. That thing could have been picked too, but it wound up being a touchdown pass with 6 seconds to go in the game.
Wow. Well, he's a winner, that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so do you think maybe the Chargers might make a trade to get a backup quarterback?
They could, trade a 7th round pick. You cut those guys anyhow. You have to find the right veteran that can run whatever Greg Roman is going to run. That's why I brought up C.J. Beathard, because he was in Frisco when Roman was there. Now, maybe there's somebody in the Baltimore Ravens past. I mean, like I said, what's Joe Flacco's phone number? Although Flacco is under contract. He signed late with somebody right at the end.
Is he with Cleveland?
Might be, I don't know.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he finished up in Cleveland when they ran through all the quarterbacks after Deshaun Watson's real bad labrum tear. At the end of the day, they need to make an evaluation on Easton Stick, and they need to make it quick because I was really disappointed. And I like that kid. And the kid was – what that kid did in college football at North Dakota State was unbelievably impressive. And, his cameo appearances when Herbert couldn't play, he kept them on the field. He got him in the drives. But when he had to do it as the starter, they could not score touchdowns in the last 4 weeks of the season.
With a name like Easton Stick, you need to be successful, right?
On we go.
Let's go to David. Were there other sports this past weekend? Curry made France feel like most of the NBA felt in 2015, 2016.
He was amazing. Man, he was launching suckers from everywhere. He hit 3 threes in a row that just broke France's back. And prior to that, he's the one that bailed them out. They were down to the Serbs by 17, and he brought them back. He finished with 36. Curry is just unbelievably special. I can't imagine how hard it was for Steve Kerr to coach that team, because those are all superstars. And those are guys that always want to be on the floor at crunch time. And last I checked, there's one ball, as weird as the ball looks, and there's 5 guys. And he had to rotate through. And Tatum of the Celtics, the one with the ring,
yeah,
he hardly played at all. And the guards, not all the guards played with any consistency. So there was a juggling act, and I'm sure it was hard on Kerr because he had all these superstars in the room. He couldn't play them all.
Well, Kerr got the gold medal. He doesn't need to prove it again. Give someone else a shot. But yeah, that's a tough assignment.
Thanks for the call, David.
Okay, this is a 2-parter here. First from Winnipeg Sports Talk. How about Lee's Maple Leaf shirt? And then comment says, oh my God, Lee gagged me with a spoon with that shirt.
Well, obviously, Comet is not a Leaf fan. With all apologies to Montreal fan who hasn't won in how many years? I decided to be cool today. I will just full disclosure. It's 104 freaking degrees in San Diego. It is impossible. It's been like this since July 4th. So I decided I found this, I would wear it. Think cool. So coming over, I listened to one of my favorite channels on Sirius XM, the NHL channel. I'm cool again. I walked into John's house because John's got new doors and windows from DIXIELINE. It's nice and cool in his air-conditioned castle. So I'm cool. I'm okay today. Sorry you gagged on my shirt. I'll wear your jersey next time.
All right, here's another comment on the shirt. This is from Callan. All right, Saw, since you've got your Leaf shirt on, what happens to the roster if they once again fail to win it all? Can't always be the coach and front office's fault.
It's part of it, my assessment, and this is the old Canada network that's pouring in here today. Part of my assessment is team chemistry. Do you have the right mix around your superstars to make it happen? You do have Austin Matthews, 60-goal scorer. You do have Mitch Marner, paying an awful lot of money to an aging John Tavares. You can't get rid of those contracts. But what you have on your third and fourth line, John, is really important. Do you have the right chemistry guys who can pot goals? Do you have the right chemistry guys who are going to back check? Right chemistry guys who are going to do all the dirty and grit work when you need to do it come postseason? Do you have enough on defense? And do you have the right goaltending? That's an issue that will continue to be discussed. Maple Leafs got this high payroll, and they've got all these star players. It's only been since 1967. That was the last time they won a Stanley Cup. So it's been a long time. And now you see what's happened out west. You've seen what happened in Edmonton. And yet, look how hard it is for the Oilers to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. And they haven't won one. And they got the generational player of all time in Connor McDavid. And they got the right guy next to him in Leon Draisaitl. And their third and fourth lines are pretty damn good. And they got a young goaltender that's grown into the position. So it's just tough to get there. It's tough to win it. It's really tough to repeat. So I think Brendan Shanahan, who's the president of the Leafs, I think they got 1 year. 1 year left. Now, granted, they can't blow this thing up because they committed all this money to all these guys. But this is not so much on Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner as it is on the support people around them. And do you have the right guy in goal? Big question. They better be there next year.
Toronto is a great city.
Oh,
I mean, I mean, my wife and I, we were visiting there about a year and a half ago, had a great time. We were at the top of the CN Tower, right next to where the Blue Jays played. But there's just a lot of great culture. It had kind of a New York City / San Francisco vibe.
It's very cosmopolitan.
Yes,
that's
very much so.
Word. Another city is like that. Here we go talking Canada. Vancouver. Vancouver is just really different. And Vancouver, it's become a pretty good hockey city again because the Canucks got real good. Thank you, Rick Tocchet. But Vancouver is very dynamic intellectually. And I spent time in Vancouver. I really like that. So I spent a lot of time in Toronto. Montreal and Quebec City are cut from a different cloth because that is French. And that's really cool, but you have to be able to handle the French language because I was there doing hockey back in my younger days in career. They would not talk English to you. No parler anglais. Have to talk French. But great. Oh, God, great history. All right, that's enough on Canada.
Okay.
Callum, thank you.
Let's go here to John and talk Padres. The Padres have hit the gas and are playing as a team. I don't think Mike Schilt gets the credit for the chemistry this team has. Should be manager of the year.
I think he'll get some consideration. They do have the rookie of the year in center field, what Jackson Merrill has done. But what's different, and John and I talked about this over coffee off the air, what is different about Padre baseball at this moment, they have their stars, and they have their injuries, and they've gotten beyond that, and they've made all these trades to get the support. What is different is the bench bunch. Because if there had not been a Donovan Solano, if there had not been a Kyle Higashioka, the catcher, if there had not been David Peralta, this team would have been in trouble because they've saved their bacon during the second half of the season because of the injuries. And the season's a 162-game grind. And they've got support talent that has really helped them. So this, for all the trades that general manager AJ Preller has made, some I've liked, some I've critiqued, this might have been the best in-season group of acquisitions AJ has ever made because it's made a massive difference in depth and team chemistry.
Yeah, I mean, even Tyler Wade has been really good, even though he banged up his nose a few nights ago. The Bryce Johnson, I'm not so sure about him, the backing up in right field. But you're noticing how he's starting to use the depth of the AAA system for the bullpen. We saw Johnny Brito. We've seen Sean Reynolds. So he's trying to, give some of those bullpen guys a break.
Well, he's got to give them a break because, as I said, when I started this road trip and they went to Pittsburgh and they had the 2-hour, 46-minute rain delay, and Dylan Cease pitched one inning and had to sit. They could not bring him back. That screwed up everything because that first game in Pittsburgh became bullpen day.
Right.
And they burned, how many pitchers they used in a game? 8?
It was something like that.
It was terrible. They made 15 calls to the bullpen in 3 games in Pittsburgh. And suddenly, now you're breathing hard. Now you're going into Miami, and then your starters struggle a little bit in Miami, and you just can't keep going back to the bullpen that often. Granted, they had some guys who got options. You bring them up. But see, that's what's complicated about baseball is you got a 25-man roster, but you have 40 on your organizational roster. But if you got somebody in the farm system that's pitching well and you don't want to bring them up and they're not on the 40, to get them on the 40, you got to bump somebody off the 40. which means you got to put somebody on waivers, which means you might lose a young prospect, or you might take a gamble on a veteran to get him off, to get this guy on who's Sean Reynolds comes on and he'll be here for 4 days. But to get him on the 40 and then get him into the 25, there's a whole series of moves you have to make. So it's quite complicated calculus moving players off the roster.
Did you see the game where Carl Edwards Jr. got in?
Yeah.
I mean, he looked mentally overwhelmed by the opportunity.
And he's a veteran. I mean, at one point, he was a very good setup closer with the Cubs, and his game unraveled. He was here before and didn't pitch worth a lick. And I think he's been with 4 teams this season. Now, that was an emergency call-up. And again, they had to get him on the roster on the 40 to get him here out of El Paso. Then they had to get him on the 25. So you had to make a couple roster changes to make that happen. Now, you can do some of that by putting a guy on the DL, but you still got to create space on the 40-man roster. So
Sure.
It's very complicated math to make it happen. But farm system, to get back to your original point, yeah, there's some guys at the bottom of the pitching staff that have, Adam Mazur bought him some starts. And of course, they since traded him. But that's the bottom of the roster. That's not a difference maker in the pennant race. That's just to buy you an appearance or two so somebody who's gassed or somebody who's hurt can come back.
Well, then now Randy Vasquez is at AAA.
Sure.
So
but he had options left.
Yeah.
Now, if he didn't have options left, they would not have brought Brito back. And they brought Brito back. He had an 8.44 ERA in El Paso. I thought, what? But again.
And he pitched well.
When he was on the 40.
Yeah.
So that's how they could call him up from the 915 area code.
So it's just kind of like a cycle at the bottom of the list.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting how they pull that off.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for the call, John. Next one.
Okay. We're keeping going here, Lee. You like these long podcasts. Okay. Here's an interesting comment, and it was from Jason. He says, also, Lee, I've looked for the road to the Super Bowl many times and can never find the one you talk about. We're going to have to look that up and maybe share the link.
Well, if you Google NFL films, Chargers, Road to the Super Bowl, or Chargers 1994, Road to the Super Bowl, it should be. I stumbled upon it on the internet, and it's pretty bloody hard for me to navigate through all the stuff. I did it. So just try it that way. Maybe try NFL films, Chargers, Road to the Super Bowl. Maybe you'll be able to find it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go hunting for
You're
that.
the IT guru in this podcast.
That's who I am. Yeah, so I'm going to go hunt for that thing because I want to watch it again.
Yeah.
And I should share it with you, and then you could put it out on Twitter, and that way the fans can follow along.
All righty.
All right. Hey, let's sneak in a few social media comments in here. And okay, let's go here. The Chargers Raiders. This is from Digo. He says, Raiders hung 60 on them. The Raider fan is still bringing up that game from last year when they went crazy.
Oh, that was unbelievable. I sat there and watched it and said, my God, John will remember, because when I write my one man's opinion column for my website, which you need to read every day, I said, I want you to put this up on the website, and then we'll send it to the people that are part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. And if you recall, the first sentence of that column was, I expect your resignation on my desk by 9 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
And at 9:05, they fired Brandon Staley. And then at 9:15, they fired Tom Telesco.
Look at you, the prognosticator.
I know what I know.
You're like Chris Berman, man.
So anyhow, that was great, but that was only one game.
One game.
And so the Chargers are going to be different this season. I mean, if you wish to argue with me over beers about who's the better team, sorry, it's still the Bolt. The reason is they got Justin Herbert. And the reason not for you guys is you got the gunslinger who's sometimes good, sometimes bad, throws touchdowns and throws interceptions and turns the ball over. We're talking about Gardner Minshew. So we could argue about that over beer.
Yeah, Raider fans are going to be feisty this year. Hey, this is another comment. I thought this was good. And this is from Mark, and he's talking about the whole Harbaugh controversy. And he says, the recruiting charges are breakfast during COVID with a recruit, a $100 charity donation to a recruit's parents' charity golf outing, and getting a recruit verified on Instagram. These are minor violations. Harbaugh is being punished for saying he didn't remember this stuff and then refusing to sign it something saying that he lied. If those seem awful to you, that's fine. They seem like less than nothing to me. As far as Stallions, there is zero evidence that any coach had knowledge of anything Stallions did. There might be future evidence, but there is none as of now.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to buy your sales pitch Does this guy's area code, does that read Ann Arbor, Michigan on it? At the end of the day, Sharon Moore and another assistant coach had to turn over their devices. The devices had 52 text messages relating to the violations in the COVID era and relating to Connor Stallions. That's why Sharon Moore is probably going to get suspended again and has already been suspended. So that's a big issue. The second item is that Harbaugh professes innocence. If you're innocent, then turn over your electronic devices like all the other people at Michigan did and prove that you're innocent, that you don't have anything to hide. Except if there were text messages between his coordinators about this game plan and this is what we have, and it was all linked to Connor Stallions, the illegal scouts text messages to the assistant coaches, then he's kind of implicated. At the end of the day, he is the head coach. He is the CEO. He probably knows everything about everything that would happen in Michigan football. So I'm not buying the theory, I know nothing.
Well, imagine if you had Harbaugh's phone and you were able to go through all of his text messages. Think of the things that he would be on there. I mean, probably crazy stuff that he definitely doesn't want to see getting out.
Well, at the end of the day, you just turn over the text messages as it relates to your correspondence with Minter, your defensive coordinator, and Moore, your offensive coordinator, and then NCAA will just link whether or not that's got something to do with the messages they got from Connor Stallions. The fact that the assistant coaches have turned over all their devices and have been disciplined. So I think it's much more deeper than a breakfast burrito hamburger or anything like that. I think it's much more deeper than that. All right, let's take one more here.
One more. All right, let's go here to a comment about the Padres. And this is from Nando. He says, "Okay, dude, your top players are in their primes now. When you're in a win now team, prospects are meant to be traded for MLB ready players. Preller is the reason why the stadium is packed every home game. It's electric at Petco Park now, and it hasn't been that way in over a decade."
I buy most of what you say. My only concern is Major League Baseball you want to win right now. That's what Preller's doing. But you want to have a system in place. When your older players are done, you've got young prospects to replace them, and he's traded them all away. 14 of the top 16 in the farm system are gone. He's also grossly overpaid for virtually everybody he's gotten, whether that's veteran contracts. You know, they're on the hook for you, Darvish, till the age of 42. They're on the hook to Xander Bogaerts, who I think is a proven pros pro, till he's 41. They're on the hook to Manny till he's 40. That's a lot of downside years that you're still going to be on the hook for. And the fact that he's traded everybody away that he drafted and signed in the international area, and he overpaid to get all those guys. So the business part of his job, to me, doesn't link up. And you can say, oh, go get more players. Now, if the owners are reeling in the payroll, and they're at 166 right now. Next year might be even lower. If they're reeling in the payroll, he's going to have less money to use to go get more people. So it's his money. It was Peter Seidler's money, I should say. I'm not barking. It's been great for the community. It's been good. But you want to win right now, but John Riley, what is the bigger picture? I think that has to be part of the equation.
But Padres need to win. I mean, that's what I mean. We are so starved for championships in San Diego. But, he's got big money tied up with a lot of players, but you got Profar in $1 million deal. You got Jackson Merrill, a rookie salary. You got a lot of other guys with low salaries. And now that Cronenworth package is actually looking like a bit of a bargain, So I'm ecstatic about what Preller's putting together here. But I'll tell you what, on Instagram, people are angry with you. They're saying, first you want Preller's head, and then you're praising Preller, and they're going crazy.
I'm critiquing what I'm observing. I'm entitled to have, it's a First Amendment, right?
Yes.
I'm entitled to have a First Amendment right to an opinion about the way he does his business. And when he does well, I praise him. And when it doesn't work out, I let you know and let him know about it too. All right. I'm not going to argue with you. This is a great podcast, and we love having you on Fans Forum. By the way, okay, here's how you find the road to the Super Bowl.
Oh, you looked it up?
Yes. So you Google YouTube Chargers Road to the Super Bowl, 1994 from NFL, 1984 from NFL Films.
94.
I said, why does it say 84? Road to the Super Bowl, Chargers, San Diego Chargers, San Francisco 49ers. February 8th, 2024, I think is when it was last posted. But that's the road to the Super Bowl. So just dial in YouTube, Chargers, Road to the Super Bowl. Maybe that'll take you with it, because I got it right here.
Well, we'll share it with the Hacksaw's Twitter All-Stars program, right?
Okay, yeah, we'll do that. John will figure how to get it to me, and I'll figure a way to get it on X.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, listen, we hope you've enjoyed this. This has been a lot of fun. We love having you part of Fans Forum. Do us a favor, will you? Share. Tell everybody what we're doing Mondays and Thursdays, 1 p.m. West Coast time. Subscribe. That way you'll get all the notifications every time we put something up on the YouTube channel, even if John posts at 3 o'clock in the morning, because the man never, ever sleeps. And also read my website every day of the week. John, take a deep breath. See if this winning streak continues. By the time we rejoin you Thursday, we'll have more NFL topics on the table too.
Down it, firefighter.
Hey, thank you for being with us. We'll see you come Thursday. Thanks for always being part of Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.